It's Matt from The Random Maker here, and Ryan is back for another Ryan Learns Tools. Okay, I shouldn't be annoyed because you actually want to learn stuff.
That's why we have this YouTube channel, and I'll play the guy who's a Joe Everyman who maybe thinks that they know what they're doing with tools, but they don't. And you got to admit that to yourselves, guys. Back of their head, you know.
Everybody here can take a piece of sandpaper and rub it on a piece of wood.
Sure.
But the intricacies of sanding, while not complicated, will make your life so much easier. That's what this video is about. And we're gonna go through a general overview of sanding and how to get the best finished product with the least amount of headaches. So let's get on to the video. Okay, why do I keep doing the...
Welcome back. It's time to sand.
There we go. I guess Ryan's got me covered on that. What we're gonna go through is what you need to sand. Okay, we know, we've got your hand. But I actually, unless you're trying to do something that is curved or you're trying to sand it, because here's the thing. If I take my hand and I sand wood, now it might work out, but believe it or not, because you're not gonna have even pressure on the wood, if you stood there and sanded for like hundreds of hours, you'll actually leave the imprint of your hand in. Now, sanding can be as simple as taking a block of wood, and put the sandpaper around it. And what that does is the wood is, in theory, flat. We know wood, but let's just go with it for now.
Sure.
And so what that's gonna do, as you're sanding it, it's gonna give a nice, even sand pattern, okay? Now, if that is not your jam, I avoid sanding by hand at all costs.
I'd say like for smaller things, this would be ideal, right? Smaller, intricate sort of things, and you need to get in nooks and crannies. Use your hand if you need to. This tiny block of wood would be great for that.
Or like, for example, I'm working on a project right now where it has a handle on it, and that is when I put the sandpaper in my hand and I actually use it so it gets the profile of my hand, so it's a really nice fit.
Nicer.
Yeah, it works really well then. There are different types of sanders. You've got your belt sander and your reciprocating sander, and then your orbital sander. Now, I personally don't have a belt sander or a reciprocating sander. And the reason is, unless you're really careful, you can put grooves and other problems into the wood. I am a huge fan of this orbital sander. And
my wife has one like this, actually. She knows how to use it.
What? Really?
I'm learning today.
Fair enough. Now, why I like orbital sanders is pretty simple. So if Ryan picks it up.
Yeah, I got it.
So it's got to start off, it's got a circle. There are no corners. Now, why is that important? Because when you push down, the pressure on this circle is, relatively speaking, going to be even. Now, the other part about it is, because it's spinning and it vibrates, it is creating a random pattern on the wood. What this does is it makes it look really nice, so you don't have to worry for wood, the direction of the wood. With metal, you don't have to worry about the direction. There is one other piece of equipment that you may or may not need, depending on the material you use. Please do your research. Make sure what you're breathing in is not bad or hazardous to your health. For example, I had to use this all yesterday for the project I was working on because I didn't want to breathe, I don't know, carbon fibers into my lungs.
Don't want to do it.
That is not a fun thing here. And so what we're going to be sanding today is just pine. So pine in a well-aired, ventilated area, it's fine, not a big deal. But some common woods, like, I don't know, cedar, which depending on the area of North America you're in, could be incredibly common, is not good to breathe. I guess we're gonna move on to the different grits of sanding.
Grits.
And how to sand. We're not talking about an English breakfast.
No.
Actually, should we go for breakfast?
It's almost dinner time.
Damn it. I wanted bacon and eggs. Let's actually talk about the different grits. What we have here is 3 common grits of sandpaper for woodworking. Now, I will say every type of material has its own pattern of sandpaper. And what it is, it's a process where you go from the rough sandpaper to the lightest touch. And the reason for that is the rough sandpaper, so in our case is gonna be 60 as shown on the back, is gonna give our wood its shape. Now, shape is maybe not the right word, but what it is going to do is knock down any highs. Now, if you were working with metal, car, auto, body, and all this, the numbers I'm going to say would be different, but it's just a matter of a quick Google and insert numbers here. Yeah. It's kind of a paint by numbers, which is nice. Ryan is going to sand with the 60 grit sandpaper. And what that's gonna do is just knock off, because this wood has been outside, so water's gotten in. You can actually feel the wood, and I know that's such a weird way to say it, but it's the best way. It's not smooth, okay?
You can feel the unsmoothness of the wood.
Right.
So then we're gonna make it. I don't know, buddy.
Safety glasses on, and Ryan's gonna get sanding. Pause. Okay, before Ryan gives me a minor heart attack, let's actually go through how to use the orbital sanders. Now, each of them are a little different, but it's pretty easy on this. So, number one, most of them do have a speed button, okay? So,
Speed.
now, the slower, like with the rougher you go, you want to go slow because you want it to that grit to just scratch along.
Right.
The finer you're going with the sandpaper, you start speeding it up. Now, there are general rules to it. To be honest, I do the eyeball test, and I just kind of look to see the sawdust I'm getting out, okay? If your sawdust, for example, if this was going super fast, you're not going to get a lot of sawdust out because it's so aggressive that it's vibrating and it's not catching anything, right? So I inadvertently left this on 1 by accident, which is the slowest. And then, so let's say as Ryan moves forward, what he's gonna start doing is increasing the speed, because the finer particles on the finer sandpapers actually don't need as much aggression, and you actually want them to dance on top because it's almost polishing on top of the wood almost. Okay, it's not actually polishing, but it's that bit of idea, right? Okay, the next thing is this particular sander does have a little catch bag. You could hook up a vacuum to it if you're really worried about that. If you are using materials that are not good for your health, you can attach a HEPA filter to it through different systems and all that. In my case, we're not that fancy here.
If you're outside, just let it fly, right?
Next thing is, what you want to do is, with wood, you can hold it on your hand. If it's a material you're worried about throwing out or it's smaller, attach to a table using a C-clamp or anything like that. And you just put the sander on the wood, and then you're just gonna press the button. And what you're gonna do is circular patterns, just like wax on.
Wax on, wax off.
Yes, and the reason is this thing is already spinning in one pattern, and so you're just trying to mesh that pattern together so that there's no pattern. Because a pattern plus a pattern plus a pattern plus a pattern equals no pattern.
Right, sure.
That made no sense, did it?
All I really know now is strike first, strike hard. No mercy to the wood. That's what I got out of that.
Cobra Kai. We're gonna cut to Ryan sanding because that first clip, his face was priceless. Now, Ryan.
Yeah.
You have gotten this wood actually quite smooth.
Did a good job.
Yeah. And one of the big things here is now if you touch this wood, can you feel the fibers anymore?
You know, not really, no, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit, but not as much as before, that's for sure.
Well, and it's wood. It's always gonna have some fibers, to be honest. But the bigger thing is now, what you've done, you've actually re-scratched the wood. Now, it's in a more appealing way, so it looks even, right?
Sure.
And that's where I'm saying this pattern plus a pattern thing, because you've scratched it everywhere, microscopically speaking. What we need to do is we're gonna take off that 60 grit.
Switch the grits.
We're gonna switch the grit.
I don't know if I mentioned this earlier too, by the way. This is just Velcro. It's very simple. That's the simplest part of the whole damn thing.
The reason I didn't do that, not all are Velcro.
Well, this one, DeWalt is, so.
Well, most orbital sanders are Velcro.
Gonna make your lives easier.
Yep, and did you line up, here's a big thing with the Velcro though, did you line up the holes on the hole there?
Oh, sure, of course.
Because what that does do is if you had a vacuum or other system attached to it, that's how it actually sucks up all the sawdust. What Ryan is gonna do on this one, and here's the big thing, you wanna do less and less sanding each time. Your 80 grit is going to be your your 60 grit is gonna be your biggest one because you are not making changes to the shape of the wood anymore. You're just making smaller scratches.
Smaller ones. Which speed do you think we should have it on? I had it on 1 for the last one, so now I should maybe crank it up to
3 is normally, so here's one part.
3?
Every sander is gonna have different numbers and stuff, so I don't wanna say like use a 3 at all times.
Right.
But on mine, it's a 3. But basically, generally speaking, so this one goes 1 to 10. So we use 10%, now I'm using 30% of the power. Now, again, different machines have different powers, but that generally is a good rule of thumb.
Maybe we could suggest before you start your project and after you've watched this video, get your sander out, get just a piece of wood like this, and figure out how yours works and the intricacies of that, right?
And that's one thing where I said, I'm watching for the sawdust. So Ryan's sawdust was quite flying, which is good. It means it was cutting. This time, I'm watching to see if the sawdust is gonna go smaller. So we put the down.
Put it down.
And we're gonna hit the button and Ryan is gonna sand.
All right, see you on the other side.
Okay, so here's a big trick with sanding. The reason why I said you don't want to sand much, it's gorgeous. So we don't want to mess with it.
No, you don't want to do too much, right?
Exactly.
Less is more. How about that? Less is more.
No, work smarter, not harder. If for some reason you scratch the wood, do not try and spend 10 hours with that. Go back a step and then restart. If the scratch or whatever you've seen is still there, go back a step. You never want to just keep sanding. Oh, there's a scratch.
Keep going, keep going.
You're
It'll
gonna
get out.
Not going to happen. So,
I've done that too.
go back a step. If that doesn't correct the scratch, you just keep going back. As soon as you've caught it, then you go forward. It's just nice, easy process. We can see my dirty hands on the wood.
Well, let's sand the dirty hands off.
All right, go ahead. How does that look, Ryan?
It looks good. Oh, Jesus Christ, that feels nice.
Just, my hands are a little dirty from some prior projects this morning. But, so, at this point, this would be perfect.
You can hear it, can't you? Listen. Well, then listen to this. You can hear the difference.
And how hard was that?
That was one of the easiest things I've ever done in my life.
So this is one of those things, people are like, it's just sanding.
Yeah.
Well, and you can even get more complicated. It has that piece of sandpaper. So, for example, if you want it, there are certain finishes that require you to sand the finish into the wood. This is where the different sandpapers can kick in. So this is what's called wet, dry sandpaper. You can dip this in water, or finish in my case, and start to sand the wood. And that's the thing. People think sanding is so easy that they don't look into it.
It's easy when you know what you're doing, I think. And then when you don't, and you get to those points like you were saying earlier that you've either gone too far or not enough and you're unsure of it.
Ryan, at this point, do you think you're confident enough to sand without me having to hold your hand through now?
Yeah, I think so. We go hardest to lightest. We go slowest to fastest.
Yes.
We have our safety equipment and we have our masks also if needed. And more importantly, we just like take our time and do it right the first time.
That's it.
We're done with sanding.
Well, how about this?
I'm a sanding king now.
If you want to see more videos of Ryan learning tools and watch me
And juggle, actually.
and watch me get a bigger headache with each video, I swear at this point. Like, subscribe, you know the whole deal. If you have any comments or project ideas, put them in the comments below. And what else?
Keep sanding.
No, avoid sanding. It's Matt from The Random Maker. Until next time, let's get making.